Brewsing Banter Podcast. Brewsing Banter Podcast. What up? Welcome to Brewsing Banter Podcast. I'm your host, Rob G. And with me, as always, is the Legendary Brew Crew. What up, fellas?
I was reading this weekend.
Mama.
Nah, it doesn't taste like dirt.
My name is Lou Belgians, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm wondering, does Delaware have an actual culture?
This is the podcast that we talk about beer, but we also talk about a lot of things that's happening in the world, politics, movies, anything really that comes to our mind while we're here sampling these brews. Grab a drink and pull up a chair.
Ooh, we love you, Brewsing Banter Podcast.
Fly, Eagles, fly, on the road to victory. Fly, Eagles, fly, score a touchdown, 1, 2, 3. Hit 'em low, hit 'em high, and watch our Eagles fly. Fly, Eagles, fly, on the road to victory.
Eagles!
E-L-G-S.
I did. My bad. E-L-S, just out. Eagles!
It's hard to even spell it wrong, right?
That was her first time singing the song. She in the mayor, not a fan.
That's
and
what
shout
it was.
out to her. Because she knew how to spell it right. NFL champions. That's how you spell it.
Right.
That's how you spell it. Congratulations
She
to
was reading
everybody
that.
who
When
was
she
an
spelled
Eagles.
that, she was reading it.
Listen, make sure you get it right. But shout out and congratulations to anybody who is an Eagles fan, anybody who was Eagles fans adjacent. If you got a crush on Jalen Hurts, shout out to you. If you like Randall Cunningham, shout out to you. Like Wilbur Montgomery, I love you too. Like Reggie White, rest in peace. Everybody who wore an Eagles jersey at one point in time, anybody who rooted for the Eagles, man, I love you guys, man. Shout out to the Birds. Congratulations.
If they would have lost the game, would you still get a shout out to everybody?
They were still in the Super Bowl.
Not in that way.
Right.
Not in that
yes.
way, but I still shout them out.
Yeah.
Once a Birds fan is always a Birds fan.
Right.
Okay.
It would just been a little more
Only
somber.
only two teams can make it to the Super Bowl.
Right.
Only two teams can make it to the Super Bowl. It's only one winner. Everybody else is a loser.
Right. True.
And now everybody's a loser. Except us, baby. Except us, baby.
All right. What up?
I'm done.
Welcome to Brewsing Banter Podcast, where the topic is the rockin' and the brew. Well, that be the fuel. And I'm your host, Rob G. And with me, as always, the Legendary Brew Crew. What's going on, fellas? I know one of us is still hyped.
Hi.
I'm
I'm gonna be obnoxious for a year, bro.
A year though?
Until we not the champs no more. I'm gonna be obnoxious. Leave me alone.
we
Cheers.
gaining on them. We got 2. Oh,
Here we come. Here we come.
That is a Cowboy fan favorite line.
yeah.
It don't matter. Well, we got more.
Yeah.
You know what though? To before we even get our guest on to speak about those Cowboys one last time, they were it was a cocaine era and it was the no salary cap era. They haven't won anything since the salary cap era and since they banned cocaine from the league. Peace to the Cowboys fans.
All right. This is episode 284 of Brewsing Banter Podcast. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. To all our bruisers and bruisettes for returning, we are glad you are joining us again for another wonderful episode of Brewsing Banter Podcast.
Welcome back.
Yeah,
Welcome back.
Welcome back. We do, like I said, we do have a great guest with us today, and we don't want to waste too much time with her in the green room. So we are going to bring her on. She is a distinguished sex therapist, intimacy coordinator, and a sexologist. She works with SAG-AFTRA, and she has an MSW and an MED. So we want to welcome to the podcast Zuri Pryor-Graves. Let me bring her into the podcast.
Hi. Welcome.
Hello, welcome.
Welcome to the podcast. What? No, that's not what this is. This is a safe space.
until it's not.
I have a question.
You already got a
Right off
question?
the bat, I have a question.
Okay.
What is the MSWs and the MEDs? What are those?
Me trying to sound more important than I am. But
Oh,
no,
don't do
I
that.
have,
Don't do that.
I
Don't
have
do
two-
that.
no,
Don't
I have-
humble.
I have
We're
two-
not humble over here.
2 master's degrees.
You said a
And
few. That's a few.
She got two.
Two.
two
But
Two
and
is
a
more
half.
than me.
Two and a half. I'm getting my PhD. So when I get the PhD, I'll
should be
I'll go
doctor.
ahead and yeah.
Okay.
Is that what you do once you get the PhD? If you have masters, you don't even consider them no more.
It depends. No, because they're going to be in different things. I'm getting so MSW is a master's in social work. So
Okay.
and MED is a master in education. So anytime you get a terminal degree, as in like I could go and get a doctorate in social work, but it would just be to do research. But in order to do therapy, like it'd be like a license, that is the only degree you need. I don't ever have to go and be a doctor. So if it's a terminal degree, then you can use the letters or whatever.
Gotcha.
But I could use both. It would still, because I'm getting a doctorate in psychology, and psychology is not, so many people think that they're interrelated, like being a therapist and being a psychologist, and they're not. So I might keep the letters because MSW means I'm a therapist. Having the PhD in psychology means I either do research or testing for like evaluations of people.
Okay. Yeah, keep all them letters. Keep all of them.
It's just like a
I like
full
that.
circle. It's just
Congratulations.
like a one-stop shop almost. All right, we always like to know what everybody is drinking on. So, what are we drinking today? And we always start with our guest. So, Zuri, what are you drinking today?
Okay. I am drinking a beer called Mama Tired. It is a sour. I'm a sours girl. Yeah, it's a blueberry sour ale from a place from where I'm from in Roanoke, Virginia, called Parkway Brewing Company.
Okay.
I got like a case of it because it's like a summer thing, and they were going out for like $10, something like that.
Nice.
Hmm.
All right.
Does it say the ABV on that bottle? Like how strong it is?
Not very. It's 4.8.
Oh,
Okay.
Okay, that's good.
That's not too bad. All right, Lou, what you drinking on?
I have here, first of all, I want to shout out Sean from Black Viking, because he came up to our event in December and gave me and Yoda a couple of beers that we may like, and I do like this one. This one is from Commonwealth Brewing Company. It's called, I think it's Cerulean Daiquiri. This is what the can looks like, and that's Cerulean, right?
Something.
Cerulean.
Something, right?
Yeah, cerulean. Look like the
Masters and masters and upcoming PhD. Does that look like
I'm pretty
Cerulean?
sure that's what it says.
All right, thank you so much. I appreciate it. It's good to have smart people on the show.
What does it mean?
This is
Ask the question.
Goza style
It's
ale.
blue, isn't it? It's like a. Isn't it a
What now?
color?
Oh,
I think it's
color?
real color. I might be wrong.
you're probably right.
Color?
Like blue?
Maybe
Like
it's
blue?
it's a type of blue.
Yeah, maybe.
I hope so, because it's all of this is a bunch of blues. So
That
I
make-
hope so.
that makes sense.
Type of blue.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But ongoing, it says this is a Goza style ale with bilberry. I never had a bilberry before. Blueberry, banana, coconut, pineapple, and lime. It's 6% ABV. Commonwealth Brewing is a family-owned and operated brewery out of Virginia Beach, Virginia. So shout out to Roanoke and Virginia Beach. We got 2 Virginia breweries here. But yeah, this is what it looks like. It's kind of purplish. It's not cerulean.
But it does mean
it's
blue.
purple.
It does mean blue. That is what cerulean does mean.
Well, maybe purple is like a shade of blue.
Or maybe
As
it's
you
like
get darker. I don't know.
It's like blueberry.
or that could be
It's like-
considered blue.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
like
like a
blueberry.
Yeah,
blueberry.
Yeah, if you call it blueberry, blueberries are purple. They not blue.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, but it's delicious. It does taste a little daiquiri like. It tastes like more like a mixed drink rather than a beer. I taste the lime and the pineapple, a little bit of coconut. I probably taste
With the
bilberry, but
lime
I don't
and
know
the
what that
cooking
is.
nuts. You put this on there.
Yeah, all that. It feels like lime, coconut, and banana are also always done a lot together in like gozas and sour styles. Yeah. But yeah, I'm gonna pass me another. Thank you, Sean. Yeah, this is what it looks like.
All right. Yo, what you got?
So I got from Dewey Beer Co. out in Dewey, Delaware. Lewis? Wait,
Dewey.
where
It's Dewey.
It's Dewey.
Dewey Beach.
Dewey.
Oh, you know what I just found out? Nobody calls Lewis Delaware Lewis. It's
What do
Lewis.
they call it?
Lewis.
It's called what?
Lewis.
Who calls it lose?
Who calls
That's
it
what
that?
well, that's what the internet calls it. We don't call it that, but I'm just saying that's what.
Also, people outside of Delaware call it lose.
Or is that AI? Lose Delaware. You know how they be jacking stuff up.
But this is what the can looks like. It's a Thrills, so you know it's a sweet sour winter colada, and this winter colada got some it got a little tasty carrot cake, orange, cherries, lemons, and coconut. And this is coming in at a 5.2. And this is what it looks like in a glass. It's thick.
There it is.
Okay?
Oh shit!
Cool.
Yeah, that is.
Does it taste thick? Like,
Yeah, it does. It does. But it's really good. It's really sweet.
It's like a smoothie.
It tastes yeah. Well, yeah, I would always pass me another one of these.
All right.
Rob, what you got?
I got from this is actually a collaboration by I by Nature and the homie at an Orchestrated Mind. It is Grand Theft Lager, Rice City. So it's a rice lager.
Nice.
They're based out of Worcester, Massachusetts. There it is.
They getting the season. They don't get no cease and desist on that.
They might now.
That's what we said.
They might now.
Jesus, that shit looks totally like the fucking World
Right.
Cup.
They ain't try to like switch it up a little bit.
I mean, but I think if you make small changes, they can, because like even that is like it's not a PlayStation, it is a O. So I think because it's like when you use the Lakers logo thing, if you change it a little bit, that's enough not to infringe on the trademark.
That's true, I guess.
Wow,
That's what I read.
Wow.
That's what I read one time. But you can always
Yeah, I
sue.
heard that
You can-
about beats too.
You can sue with anything, so they can definitely send you a letter and see what happened. But they definitely got more money than probably the brewery. So he's like, shut that down.
Yeah.
But here it is, the rice lager, nice and clear, in our 6th anniversary glass. There it is. So it's nice and clear, delicious, nice and smooth. It's 5.5 ABV, really light, really crisp, crushable, nice. I mean, I enjoy rice lagers for sure anyway. But this is definitely one. So shout out to I by Nature and Orchestrated Mind. Pass me another. If you enjoy rice lagers, you definitely enjoy this. All right. Well, we all have something great to
You may
drink
get
on.
it. They'll probably end up getting it in a different can by the time they get to it.
Sure.
But
I mean, but
so if you're looking forward to that can, you better run now and get it.
Yeah, that's a collectible.
if you name a game after Grand Theft Larceny, I mean, hey, you getting jacked too. I mean, so it is what it is. All right.
You got a point.
I'm sure they don't probably think it that way, but all right. Well, we'll see. We'll find out. Coming soon, I guess. I don't know how long it's been out. I don't know if this is the first collaboration or whatever. We'll see. We'll find out.
Hopefully we didn't just mess it up for them. So
Yeah.
let's go.
Hopefully not. All right. Well, we are excited to have Zuri on the podcast to talk about what an intimacy coordinator is, because I'm sure a lot of people are saying, what is that?
Me?
So without further ado, you want to welcome again Zuri Pryor-Graves to the podcast.
Yay.
And
Welcome.
like we always say, we like to know who you are, where you come from, and the proverbial floor is yours. So we'll give it to you, Zuri. What is an intimacy coordinator?
Yeah, an intimacy coordinator. I work in television and film, and I've been doing so for about 6 years.
Okay.
An intimacy coordinator is anyone who acts as a liaison between production, the actors, the director, and everybody on set anytime there's any kind of hypersensitive material. Typically that means nudity, simulated sex, but it can also mean things like domestic abuse that doesn't get to the point where it's sexual assault. We can be looking for something like that. Going and having an abortion, having a pregnancy, even or a labor, or any things that hyper exposed, and it can kind of lean into the either intimate or nudity or sex world.
Now is this a fairly new, I guess, field? Because I don't know. Have they always had intimacy coordinators on sets? I mean, because there's been a lot of nudity in sex. In movies going back forever. So I don't know. And you got script coordinators and stuff like that. So I didn't know if this was a new thing.
Absolutely. And I was amongst I guess you would say the first round of us. Well, I guess the second round. So the first round was came about in about 2017 in response to the Me Too movement. Right after it was already becoming a thing in theater. So theater, this woman named Tonya. So I can't remember her last name, but she started it in theater, and basically it stemmed from stage combat. So adding in extra precautions for safety around things that needed extra attention. So directors don't direct. I mean, I'd say 99% of the time aren't directing any kind of fight scenes. You have a stunt coordinator on set. So what they started to realize and those people come with pads, and they have extra rehearsals beyond just learning words and all of that. And they realized that intimacy needed to be treated in that way too, with extra precautions and planning, as opposed to getting on set just like any other time. You're because a lot of times the only time these people are working on these scenes outside of working on it with themselves is a table read that happens before you even start filming. And then all of a sudden you might not ever see this person, and all of a sudden you're on set and they're okay, yeah, let's just wing it. Or what are the beats, or what do you want to do? Or so it got to be, thank goodness that it was brought to the attention of the right people in a way that couldn't be ignored during the Me Too movement. And knowing that Henry Weinstein had hundreds of people apparently that he had violated it during sex scenes and around a lot of intimacy and nudity in television and film. And it had become very much a boys' club that needed some reins put on it. And from that birthed this position.
Huh. You would think it would be a natural thing, like you said, the stunt coordinator, because it's not a natural thing to get naked in front of all these people.
All these people, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. When you said this, it started in the Me Too movement. I'm they've been having sex scenes since, I can't remember the last, it's been since the 50s, and I don't know, since movies.
Yeah.
Well, and there's always been intimacy. There's always been, and even in silent film, there was intimacy.
Right, but to literally have a person who does stunts and the director don't have nothing to do with that, but he has everything to do with the sex scenes. It is kind of creepy. Why wouldn't you have? And if I'm talking to if I'm just having a table read with the person I'm supposed to have a quote unquote sex scene with, that is very, very awkward. With 50 people in the room, and that's gross.
Gross.
I'm glad you're around. I'm glad that Me Too movement happened.
I am too.
That was needed 30, 80, 100 years ago.
Yeah, probably about, this is probably Hollywood is probably one of the oldest boys clubs that exists. And I don't want to gender everything, because it's not that. I've seen directors and folks of all different backgrounds, sizes, shapes, colors, genders, expressions, whatever, be completely 100% in the wrong and inappropriate. And it's really unfortunate. It's really unfortunate to watch. But yeah, I'm grateful that I moved to Atlanta 6 years ago, and it was very random. My story is very non-conventional, but I moved here to play roller derby. I was recruited by the roller derby. Yes, I was a professional roller derby player for 8 years. And so Atlanta has the most people of color, actually I don't know anymore, I don't follow them, but when I came, they had the most people of color per capita of any team in the world out of like, hundreds and thousands of teams. So, and they were one of the top 10 teams in the whole world. So I came down here.
Excuse me. Excuse me. Where were you roller derbying at before you came to Atlanta?
Philly.
All right. So there's a scout at the Philly roller derby game from Atlanta that sees you, or like Instagram sees you, or like there's videos.
They play each other.
Yeah, we play each other, and
you was just destroying the Atlanta Cats, and they was like, we need her on our team.
But I was keeping. Philly was a top 20 team, and Atlanta was a top 10 team. So, and I've for DC before then, which was like a top 50 team.
I don't want to talk no more about the intimacy. I want to talk about the roller skate.
Well, it led me to intimacy coordinating because I moved here, and a lot of the folks here were involved in TV and film. And I was a therapist, and I was trying to see the therapy practice I was working with in Philly was a nonprofit organization with kids.
But yeah, back to the roller derby. So you were in Philly, and you were playing against the Atlanta team. They liked what you was doing out there, so they was like, "Yo, we going." How does that? They make a phone call. They send you an email. They offer you money.
No, we just knew. We just knew each other, and with roller derby, we also have this thing every year that's called it's called RollerCon, kind of like Comic-Con. So people from all over the world, like one of the I think they're number one right now. I might be wrong, but from Melbourne, Australia. So we have people literally from everywhere, and we all go to this thing called Comic-Con, and we get to play with each other and against each other. So it's a good opportunity to kind of shoot your shot or skate.
It's like the combine. It's the combine.
Yeah, pretty much. It's the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Huh. This is definitely a world tryout. You could have been recruited to Brisbane.
Absolutely. They tried to recruit me to Melbourne and to bring a dog. It was 6 months quarantine.
Oh.
For you and the dog, or just the dog?
No, for the dog. They keep them for international. Yeah. And I was like, that's insane. I'm not doing that. So that was literally I didn't look further into it beyond that after I knew that.
Y'all got to readjust. Y'all got to
Yeah, by the time you see your dog again, it's going to be like, who the hell is that?
That's a fascinating story. You got two master's degrees working on your PhD, and you was recruited to Atlanta to do what you're doing, to roller skate. Roller derby is an amazing thing. That's so good.
It was an amazing part of my life. I don't know that I'd be where I clearly probably wouldn't be here if it wasn't for it. I stopped in 2020. But I moved here as soon as I finished my my second master's, and but I ended up meeting a lot of women down here on the team who were affiliated with television and film. And as I was trying to figure out what I was going to do therapy-wise, because I really wanted to stay in the nonprofit realm, and Atlanta's just set up very, very differently when it comes to mental health. And I didn't want to go into private practice. So I was really kind of sitting on my butt. And so I just started going with some of these girls to some of these stunt classes that they have down here now than I was then. A lot less shock diesel, but back then I was heftier. I was much stronger, and I was getting recruited to do a lot of
you said cock diesel, yo.
I mean, I was. But yeah, so I was getting recruited to do a lot of tactical stuff, fighting, things like that. But I was never any good at it. So it was fun. I used to go to the stunt gym, and then the only stunt that I actually ever landed was a motorcycle stunt for I won't say the name, but a very well-known TV show. And I got there, and I was like, I can't believe it. I mean, it's my first time on a set.
Did you actually make the show? Was you were the stunt woman in that particular scene for that show?
Okay, so what ended up happening is we were all asked to go, and the scene evolved into something else, which I know now happens a lot in television and film. Still got the same pay, but we were supposed to basically it was a club situation. So what we were supposed to do is ride up to the club and, like in our little like motorcycle gang, and then go into the club, right? We shot the club scenes first, which were just us in the club, like, and the scene was happening, but there was a lot of nudity inside of the club and some simulated sexual situations. And I was like, this does not feel right. Like, I was like, I don't know anything about what I'm supposed to be looking at and like what's supposed to be happening, but I feel like something more should be happening. And it kind of activated my therapist brain. So I started thinking, okay, if this is the work, because my automatic assumption was like, if this is, nobody else seems bothered. So if this is how it is, then what happens afterwards when these people go home? So I started looking into like set therapy, because I was like, is there somebody here that supports people, or do they send people afterwards? Because this is a lot. And I asked enough people the right questions and got somebody who was like, I actually worked on this was like 2018. He was like, I worked on a film in New York, and he was like, I feel like there was somebody there doing something like that. And he was like, if you're back tomorrow, he was like, if I can find my call sheet, he was like, I'll bring it. I never thought I'd see this guy again. He brought it. No, and the person on there, her name was Alicia Rodas, and it's that intimacy coordinator. And the show was The Deuce, which coincidentally was the very first major production that had an intimacy coordinator. And she kind of made up the title, and she was the person who did the thing. So, as 2018 goes, I went and I started on my long journey of stalking, which was very short because Facebook, was pretty accessible. So I found her right away and I sent her a message, but the grace was that she actually responded. And I just let her know I was a therapist. I was, new and local to Atlanta. And I wanted to know more about what is an intimacy coordinator. And I told her I was on the set that was kind of weird. And coincidentally, that set, because she was really starting this, she was she was pioneering this, that set had already been reported. And so I wasn't the only one who saw some things happening, and somebody had actually quit. It was like this whole big thing that I didn't know about until later, but she was sending someone who was an Atlanta-based stunt coordinator who she'd been kind of training up to be an intimacy coordinator, who she sent over. And she was like, if you can get there on Wednesday. So what I did is I ended up signing. I was like, can I be background? Because they ended up cutting the outside scene. So I was like in the club, but I never got to do the stunt. But we got stunt pay, so whatever. So anyway, but I asked to come back as a background artist. And they let me back, and I was able to be there and talk to her on the set and be like, this is what I saw. What do you do? Like, what is this? And she was still at the phase where we were just all trying to figure it out. So I came in as a therapist, like with a therapy brain about it, because they're all TV film people. They're thinking about the movement. They're thinking about safety in terms of like, let's plan this out. We need choreography, we need beats, we need these things. And I'm over here like, but are you okay? Like, right. Are you really okay? Yeah. And they pushed back for so long at me to be like, this is not therapy. This is different. This is not therapy. This is different. And then eventually I feel like they had to kind of succumb to the fact that yes and no. Because if I'm working with Channing Tatum, Taye Diggs, Morris Chestnut, who have done a bajillion sex scenes, they don't need somebody to go in and tell them how to do it. But there is an emotional element to it, and there are other legitimate, logistical pieces to it that need to be handled. And then you have your first time actors, and then you're getting into the more of the coddling and the choreography and those piecework. So, but it all came together, and we're still doing the thing, and we're getting ready to unionize and feel a little bit more legitimate. So
And it's all
So
started
what did
from
you see on this?
rollerblade.
From rollerblade. Yeah, rollerblade.
I mean,
Now,
yeah.
hold on. Are you a
Legitly.
are you an inline skater or are you a four-wheel
Roller
roller?
always quads.
So okay, just checking. I didn't know if it was an option.
Mm-mm. I
Yo,
definitely
but I did have
know that.
questions. So what was it that you were seeing on the set that made you say these things? Like, yeah, you didn't tell us what set it was, so you can tell us what you saw.
I don't know if I can. I already gave year. I gave club. I gave nudity in the club.
Hey,
I think that's enough. I think that especially
there's a million movies with club scenes.
It is. It would be easy to put those pieces together, but no, I won't say that because not like right now necessarily in this moment.
But if we thought
so let me elaborate on Yoda's question. Was it more of like what you saw, or more of like the after effects of the actors walking away from the scene? That bothered.
I think I'm really sensitive. So it might not be things that everybody would picture, but I would say for one thing I saw was you have like 60, 70 background people. You have one background PA, because that's usually what it is. And then you have other people, but there was no one specific job to like look out for these naked people. So you're saying like action, and, people are taking their clothes off. You say cut and everybody just starts working. And everybody, you still got these naked people walking around. So it's like so now we have all these protocols in place where like there's like you say action and then we remove robes before anything happens. When we say cut, no work, no movement, no anything, you bring robes back in, you reset the scene, and then you allow and we close off the set. So just like if there's a closed set, you only have essential people. So whereas like you might have 10 camera people who are doing all these not miscellaneous jobs, that's disrespectful. Everybody's job is important, but certain things can be done with fewer people.
Right.
So if you are in a position where your job can be done by fewer people, then that's what happens.
And
so
especially in an intimate setting and an intimate scene, like why do we need 50 people behind the camera when only 10 people can be here to do it?
Right.
Okay.
So just implementing those kinds of things. So what I saw there was that wasn't a thing yet. So you've got background people who are supposed to they're not supposed to have their phones. They've got their phones. They're over here trying to sneak pictures. They're running up on the girls while they're trying to get people weren't coming in fast enough to bring them robes or cover-ups. So they were going through the audience naked, trying to get back to where they were, and getting stopped by people in the middle of trying to, and being like, hey, can I get your number? Can I get your Instagram? Crazy stuff. And I was just like, this is not real life. And you could just tell. And then there were a couple people you could tell who were on crew who were super protective of these women, and they would be huddled up in a corner. And they're it just felt real icky. Yeah. And you could just tell that people were doing the best they could, but everybody has a job to do, a very, very short amount of time to do it. And their job is not to babysit the actors. So it just gets real. So it's just important to have somebody in that specific role to set up protocols and procedures to make sure that none of those things go awry, just because nobody's focused on it.
I wonder who the intimacy coordinator was on Monsters Ball.
There wasn't one.
This guy.
Yeah, it was before 2018.
Some real.
Yeah, that was not real sex. But if you look at it really closely, you can actually see her modesty garment. So when you're doing sex scenes, sex is actually usually not possible because we put things over people's genitals and in between people's bodies, modesty barriers or modesty garments that keep penetration from being even possible. So a good one that I always like Jason's lyric. If you go back and you look at Jason's lyric and you look at Jada, when she gets picked up and put on the bar, when they're having sex, you can see a piece of tape that's a tail of her butt. It is it's just for a second.
That's so funny. Like you noticed that.
Tape. Mm-hmm.
Because that's what you do, but ain't nobody else notice that.
Did you notice it before or after? Did you notice it before or after?
After. Okay. I'm also guilty of being really late and watching like black cinema. So like,
oh boy,
it was after, way after it should have been.
We got one of those.
But you know, we're here now. I watched Poetic Justice last night.
Oh my God! She said a blanket black cinema.
Wait, for the first time?
Yes.
Listen,
Can
I tell you a story?
Let the internet do what it was doing before.
I'm gonna be unified with Zuri right now. This weekend, I just watched Color Purple in full for the first time.
The original one?
Yeah.
Well, it was good.
It was really good.
But that's a deeper subject, so a lot of people.
That's different. That's not Boys in the Hood, Menace to Society. Like that's.
I feel like that's all in the realm of you should. I feel like that's all in the realm. If you're a certain age by now and you're black, you should have watched the movie. I feel like all of those movies, you should, like Color Purple's included in that, even though it's a little bit deeper. Like Menace to Society is still a movie. Are they all together? You need to have seen that.
Color Purple had a Caucasian director, so there's your.
Who did?
Color Purple had a Caucasian director, so you got it out.
It was based on a book by black.
I know. I'm trying to give you an out, brother. I'm trying.
I don't need one. It's disrespectful. I'm just trying to help Zuri. I'm trying to help Zuri out. But if y'all don't want me to, I'll let her stay on that hill alone.
Now they want to watch black shit because Black History Month. I get it.
It was on. It wasn't it was the propaganda of the media putting black shit in front of me.
I've got a friend who's on a mission to make sure that I do better. So I have a stack of DVDs that I'm supposed to watch like one a week. So
damn, you got a DVD player?
Yes. Oh. I watched Poetic Justice on DVD last night.
I love it. I love it.
I'm just curious. Now I need to know, like, what are the movies that you have? What are a few of them?
What's the stack of DVDs that you
bought? Dead Presidents.
You ain't seen that either.
No. Have you seen Menace to Society, Boys in the Hood.
Love Jones? Have you seen Love Jones?
Yes, I have seen Love Jones.
You didn't have to see that one.
She did.
I'll stand on that hill. That movie is overrated.
I can't think of right now.
What the hell was you watching then?
Last night. I have seen Players Club.
Okay.
I saw that like around the time, but like a lot of these things, it was like that border of like, you're not really too young, but you really shouldn't be watching this.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
Have you seen all the Fridays? What about the Fridays?
Yes, I've seen all the Fridays. Okay. That's a little later.
Yeah.
Okay. So anything in that area, that's like Set It Off, Friday, Barbershop. I've seen all those.
Okay.
Gotcha.
So like real early 90s or late 80s, she out.
Yeah, like I'm gonna get you suckers, stuff like that.
Yeah, she definitely see I'm gonna get you suckers.
Like, got it right. I'll write it on the list.
Yeah, put that on the DVD. Put that in the DVD set. That's worth it.
Like
everybody got their own theme music.
Oh, Babs, okay.
Babs, do the right thing. That's of that era. Yeah. So
okay.
We're working on it.
Yeah. Higher Learning. You guys watch Higher Learning too.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh.
Yep.
I'll put it on the list.
So she hasn't seen that.
We'll add to your list daily, it seems.
All these degrees.
While she was roller skating and studying, she couldn't watch no damn movies. She had no time for that.
That's okay. It's okay. You're doing good things in the world. That's what matters.
Well, thank you.
You don't gotta be watching all the movies. But like what? So now with you being an intimacy coordinator, what exactly do they do for a person to prepare them, or whatever the case is, for intimacy?
Yeah, like now that you're established into
what is it that
what does it go
do?
And like do you get the call, or do you call the movie?
I have an agent. I also I'm grateful to have made some pretty good impressions, I think, at some of the opportunities that I got very early on. Like when I was doing shadowing and stuff of people who were already doing the person I was talking about, like who was I almost said the show, who was on that show. And so being able to make those connections and being a woman of color, has been very helpful because before me, everybody working in Atlanta was white. So being able to go, and not in a poaching kind of way, but actors would just I've been told actors have felt more comfortable with working with me, and just thinking about the difference of white women policing Black bodies and kind of the climate of society right now. And these are women doing, amazing work, amazing people. I've learned everything I know from them. And also it's okay for them to be comfortable with someone of color. So because of that, I kind of gotten that reputation of I'm in Atlanta and I'm Black. And if you're doing something that is related to Black folks, at least put me in your interview rotation. I think it's kind of, so, and I don't always get the job, but I try my best to do that for us, even though a lot of times our budgets are a lot smaller. I just think it's important. But yeah, so I sometimes I get the call, and I say my agent, I haven't really gotten a lot of work from my agent. It's just a really weird business and industry, and it's still trying to figure itself out. Even 6 years in, we're kind of like in this infancy, but it's all I do. Well, it's not all. Everything that I do surrounds it. So I get enough work to be comfortable, and I'm okay with that. I hope that as we move into a direction where it's mandatory to hire an intimacy coordinator, that the work will pick up. Because right now it's the production's choice, and that's a little bit of where the issue lies, because it messes up the hierarchy, like of an actress, or it's like by actor request. So then it's like, are you being labeled as difficult? If somebody's like, oh well, we didn't budget for this and it's not that big of a deal, you can just do it. You're not comfortable? Oh, why aren't you comfortable? And then people get pressured. It gets funky.
Is that part of why the unions coming in isn't getting involved, so that every movie that has sex or intimacy would be required to have you or someone like you?
Yes, like a stunt coordinator. So if there are certain things that are listed, if it's a SAG production and it escalates to the level of a certain thing and there's like a list, then a stunt coordinator is required. So it's going to end up being something like that. That also helps with pay. We don't have to negotiate pay because that's so annoying. And we've got because this is now a trending profession. I don't know how many times I've run into people like at mixers and things like that. And they're like, oh yeah, my name is such and such and I'm an intimacy coordinator. I'm like, no, you're not. Because I know all of the people who are actually intimacy coordinators who are actually
like that guy with all the chains. No, you're not. You're not.
No, you're not. And I'll say it just like that. And I'm like, and I'll be like, what was your name again? And I'll report it to SAG to make sure. And people are like, well, that you're being a gatekeeper. And I'm like, I also am a mandated reporter as a therapist. And what you're doing is unethical. If you are not if it's a kissing scene and that's very different than there's no barrier of like, if you're hiring an intimacy coordinator, sometimes you don't know what the content is. And you're on a set where you're dealing with a sexual assault victim who's acting out a sexual assault scene, who's in the middle of like thinking they're doing shadow work to try to work through their trauma. It gets so deep so fast, and it spirals in a way like if you are not trained to do this work, you are being really unethical with the things that could be presented to you. Right. So it's like, but it might not do any harm if it's just like some random people kissing who might even be in a relationship already, which is, something I deal with a lot, actors who are already dating, and maybe you don't need that level of expertise, but you can't just make that decision because you're not going to necessarily know ahead of time.
You can't assume that the actors are going to start dating either. They may hate each other.
Right.
You know what's weird though? What I think about is that what if the movies start with all this what is it, CGI, AI stuff happening? The sex scenes just start being done through AI instead of the actual people. Is that something that you ever thought about as an intimacy coordinator?
We use a lot of like editing and actually in post. Unfortunately, there is a lot of CGI that happens, whether that's editing people's bodies and even like because part of my job is that's the other thing. Like you can't write legal contracts if you don't know what you're doing. So we write legal language and work with lawyers to protect both productions and the actors. So we to make sure, so it's like after things are rehearsed, after things are teased out, everybody's agreed on what's happening. I write up something that says player agrees to having their left boob touched with other player's right shoulder. Like I try to make it very specific and repeatable so that when we're in that moment, you can't ever ask for more. You can always scale it back, but you can't ever ask for more. So I'm trying to run it back with what you're asking. Ask me your question again. Sorry.
Nah, like with CGI, I was asking about CGI and AI, like what they were just make the sex scenes yourself.
So sometimes I add in language about editing. So there are people who, people with insured bodies, especially like in dealing with Atlanta and stuff, and people who maybe have like lots of stretch marks, certain tattoos, certain things like that, that they'll have it written in their contracts that if they are agree to this level of exposure, then they will CGI certain things in post.
Interesting.
So that's something that's always kind of been a thing. And a lot of times, like with the modesty garments and stuff that I was talking about, I'm actually designing my own now because what we use, we borrow from other communities. That's what I was like, all I do is intimacy coordinating, but it's all related. But yeah, so I'm working with a manufacturer to try to develop some things that are in more sizes and in more skin tones, because in working with Black actors, there's like everything is like light, medium, dark, and none of those colors ever match anybody. So so in when we're trying to mask things, a lot of times in the choreography that we do, we can do our very best to work with the camera director and the director and the actors to try to create choreography where we mask all of those things and people can really look naked or they can look, exposed in a certain way, but it doesn't always work. So those things get noted to post editing, and that editing is like the CGI stuff. But in terms of like full AI, I have not thought about I feel like that goes into, because a lot of what's being discussed right now at SAG-AFTRA with a lot of these contracts, there's like a whole AI conversation.
Right.
Is a huge part of that conversation is about ethics, morals and ethics. And it's like, if it's ethically okay and it makes sense to make this person do something that they never did, then it might make sense. Or like, just like, think about Chad, Boswick, like a lot of that was he died, right. So they had to CGI him. So there are certain things where it's like, you can't rule out CGI completely, because there's sometimes where morally and ethically, like, it's okay. But I don't know that you would ever be able to really make that argument for intimacy unless like I've had pregnant people doing intimacy and using, and sometimes body doubles don't work. We use, we'll replace people and we'll put dots on their face so we can superimpose other people's faces on them. And sometimes it doesn't work well. So you'd have to make an entire CGI person. So I mean, or like entire AI. That's one way that I could see it being used. But yeah, we usually just use body doubles.
So
interesting.
So how does it normally work? Like, do you get like the script and you like go through, or do you get parts of the script that have intimate scenes in it? You kind of like go through it and you say, well, and then you have like a counseling session. Like, okay, what are you comfortable with? Like you add the guardrails, like, and I guess it's the guardrails because I guess it's whatever the person's comfortable with. Because I think I remember years ago now there was like a scene that actually made the internet, or back in the day, I guess it was the internet, but it was like one movie. It was Brown Bunny was the movie, and she had unsimulated fellatio on the set. So it was like, I don't know, I guess she signed off that she was okay with it. I'm not sure how it worked, but I'm assuming that these are
like she really stuck a penis in her mouth on TV.
Yes.
Like was it a real, like we're sure it was an anatomical penis.
As far as I know, it was the controversy.
I was like, I didn't go check.
What year was? I'm just curious what year it was.
This would have been early 2000s. So I want to say 2001, 2002, one of them early, because it was like it made the rounds like it was unsimulated in the movie. So I'm assuming that there were some guardrails put in there by someone, I guess, that hey, she agreed to do this on camera, because it wasn't like it wasn't a porn scene. It wasn't a porn. It was the actual mainstream movie.
I'm gonna say I don't know enough about it, and I can't respond to that specific movie. But I will say it is illegal to have an erect penis, whether it's in contact with someone or not, in TV and film. If there is, it's qualified as porn off bat. So anytime you've ever watched anything, at least as far as I know, in the last, like, I'd say, I feel like I can comfortably and confidently speak about the last like 15 years or so, that penis was not real. So it was, so we do all kinds of things with prosthetics and stuff, but if it's a flaccid penis, it could be real. But the thing that you're running into with morals and ethics is these scenes take hours. You can't ask somebody to maintain an erection. Like it's against, like, I keep saying moral ethics, like I'm a broken record with this moral ethics thing. But yeah, it's unethical to ask someone to participate in any form of actual stimulation, including doing something to give them an erection on purpose. Right. You know, people have erections all the time, but like to have somebody do that. So my guess would be that she was going in on a very well done prosthetic, would be my guess. But a lot of times, like I've worked with actors and stuff, and because people don't know that, and I'm like, I went like bought and paid for that penis, but yes, you can be on the internet and say that was yours if you really want to. So, and then, and productions won't back it because they don't want to, they don't want to, like a showrunner's like, oh, well, it will decrease the realism or like whatever,
But all you got to do is just Google the law. Like you just told us it's against the law to have an erect penis on camera. So it's not. Like you can tell me all you want that it's yours. I know it's not. Because Zuri just told me it's for you to flash that thing. Nobody wants to see that.
It is.
Yeah. Wow, I never knew it was illegal or it's straight porn off the bat. We got to rate it as a porno.
Yeah, so this was 2003. It doesn't say if it was erect or not. It just said it was unsimulated fellatio. That's all. I'm looking at Wikipedia right now. I don't know.
Unsimulated means like she did it.
Yeah, like she did it. Yeah. It was.
Then I don't know what kind of back stuff.
Put a scene up, Rob. Put a scene up.
I know. I have to go and look at it, but that's wild. I know. And also, is it America? That's another thing.
That's a good question.
Yeah. She's an American actress. Yeah.
What does that mean?
It was filmed in America. So the bluest eye.
United States and Japan. It don't even say if it's. I don't know.
Have you ever heard of The Bluest Eye, or is it Blue is the Warmest Color? Something like that. But it's like a lesbian. It's these white women, and it's like French or something like that. They have like, I don't know. It's like a 16-minute sex scene.
Damn.
It's something like that, and it's them really having sex. And apparently, they shot it over the course of like 3 or 4 days, and it is like they've talked about all of the trauma that came from it, all of the coercion that, and they were also like, I think 18 and 20, something like that. Yeah, your face is the right face. It's like it's one of those where it's like, I remember I was watching it because I watched it before I was doing this work, and then I went back and I watched it afterwards, and it's like you watch it and it's like, oh, that's kind of hot, and then it's like it gets to that point where it's like, now I'm uncomfortable,
right?
You know, like okay, and now I'm even more uncomfortable. And then it's like, oh my God, you poor people like that. It gets to be like that.
Yeah. Once you find out it's 16 minutes and it took 4 days to do, like,
yeah, and you find out their ages, and like one of them dropped out of school to go do this movie. It's a lot. The whole,
I went to sleep 3 different times and woke up to do this. Like, that's hard.
Yeah, knowing that you're going to have to go do it again.
Yeah, right.
But your question was about like the process. So I ideally, if I get pulled into a project, ideally, I'm a thought in the pre-production process. That's what I would prefer to happen. A lot of times it's people are in the middle of shooting something and then they have this intimacy scene coming up and they're like, hey, where's the intimacy coordinator? And then all of a sudden I'm launched into the middle of an already working ecosystem and have to try to figure it out.
Right.
But ideally, I get a script before anybody starts shooting. They've hopefully already identified the scenes, but I will go through the entire, and I will get that's the other thing, I'll get the whole script.
Get the whole script, okay.
Yeah, because then that gives me context for the characters, because it's all storytelling. Because otherwise, I like a lot of times I'll just get a scene and it says Billy kisses Ashley and they go at it, and it's like, okay, what does they go at it mean? Have they ever met before? Have they been married 30 years? I can't do anything. I can't do anything with that without more information. So ideally, I would go through, I would identify anything that I see as either intimate or sensitive. And I make I have a grid system that I create, and I'll send it over to a production manager or something, and I will request a meeting. If they haven't already requested a meeting of me, and that meeting would include someone from the creative team. So like a producer, writer, something like that, the director, and anyone else. Oh gosh, and anyone else that I'm writing with my hands the whole time. I don't know why it's just doing it now, but anyone else that would be involved in the planning of what that scene needs to look and feel like. We hop on a call. Well, now it's on calls because COVID and stuff, but sometimes it's in person. And we talk through exactly what they want it to look like. It's not like I'm on the creative side of things because I help creative things come to life, just like a director. We have to have a creative mindset, but our job and responsibility is to bring to life somebody else's ideas. So where my role comes into play is I need to know exactly what somebody's looking for, and then I'll go and talk to my actors. I'll figure out what they're comfortable with. Without even we don't even talk about the scene necessarily first. It's like if somebody was asking you to do whatever, what are your boundaries? What are you comfortable with? And then after I get that information, I will divulge okay, well, these are the scenes that we've identified as intimate scenes. This is what the creative team is looking for based on what you're saying. I feel like everything in here kind of falls within your boundaries, but maybe not. Let's talk through it. Or it'll be clearly based on what you just said, we're going to have to reevaluate how we're going to have to make this look, because this is in direct conflict with what you've said you're comfortable with. So then that question ends up being, are you comfortable? Because a lot of times people are like, yeah, I'm fine if you touch me here, or I'm cool with showing a little side boob or whatever. But they don't have a why associated with it. I just get these really general things. So then if it seems like something's in conflict, I'll go back and be like, is it that you don't want to do that, or you don't want to tell that story? Because if it's that you don't want to do that particular thing, but you're okay with telling the story that you did it, then that's when my creative comes in and we figure out a way to choreograph something that tells that story but stays within the actor's boundaries. So if it's they are fine with telling the story of having a sex scene, but they don't want to do any thrusting, right? And they don't want to show that they're being thrusted against. So being able to shoot it in pieces where maybe we see hand movements that are happening on a bed, and it stimulates that, or we even moving the bed and you don't even ever see anybody on it, or it's a car scene and the car is rocking and there are not even any people in the car. So then that's when you are doing the movie magic thing. So after we come, we do all those compromises, we talk it out. I come up with what they're either comfortable with or not. I revisit it with the creative team. We make sure everybody's on the same page. Then we ideally have a time for rehearsal that is 48 hours ahead of time of the scene. So we work through all of the blocking, all of the beats. And I've had people who want to come and they just like sit there and they're like, hey, let's talk about it. And then I'm like, you guys don't want to block it out. And they're like, no, we'll block it out later, but we're on the same page. And I'll go and write something up and be like, okay, you said you want to put your hand here, there at this point, and I'll block it out like choreography and write it out and try to storyboard it for them. So because a lot of times I could be saying something to you, you're hearing something and it's different.
Right.
So if people don't actually want to do it, I'm not going to push it. I'm going to encourage it, but I'm not going to push it. But I will do what I can to make sure that you thinking you're on the same page, you're actually on the same page. And then we'll so after the rehearsal, I'll write up that legal language that I was talking about and being like, okay, this is what we've decided. And that's like the moon, right? So that's the most that we can do. Get it over to their lawyers, their managers, their agents, via our whatever the production office is. I write the language, they put it in a legal document, get it to the production's lawyers to make sure it's done correctly because I'm not a lawyer. And then they send it over to their people and I get CC'd. So if the people have any questions and they come back, because the lawyers aren't going to be able to answer those questions of it says this, but what does that really mean? How are you guys going to shoot this? I get a lot of that. What are the cameras? How many camera angles they're going to be? How long is this going to take? Stuff like that. A lot of it I can't answer, but I'll try the best that I can so that they feel comfortable enough signing off on it. That document has to be sent 48 hours ahead of time. It can be signed anytime between that 48 hours and the time we go to shoot, but it has to be signed before we shoot. When we go into shoot, we can always do less. Like I said earlier, but we can't ever ask anybody, even if I've had people go into a scene and they're like, oh, I thought this was going to be really weird. But I'm actually okay. We can do that thing that we talked about. I'm not saying no to that anymore. And I'm like, well, I have to say no for you because we didn't write it down.
I was about to ask that. Is there a time where people say, well, that don't fill out this, now that I see it or feel it, this don't fill out thing to the character. I think we should go further. So you're saying, now we already wrote this up, so we got to go what you agreed to. You can go backwards. You just can't. You can't say, "Yeah, let's go all the way through, guys."
Yeah,
gotcha.
But then I do work with productions and I hate this. I hate it, but it does. It's happening actually more and more and more, where I can write the most specific language, and by the time it gets to the lawyers and stuff, they're like, that's too specific," because at the end of the day, they're the production's lawyers. Right. So that's when you get into the messy hierarchy things of stuff where it's this document that you were signing off for the actors, it's for the actors, but it's but you're yeah. So the production company's lawyers who are actually sending out that document would rather err on the side of more macro general language, right, so that they don't end up in a situation later where the actor's like, well, I didn't, whatever. So they'll keep it really general. If that's the case when we're on set, then I can, what I'll say a lot of times is I'll write an addendum to it to say that you agreed to more, and I'll write it up and have, and request that the team gets somebody to sign it. But sometimes they do and sometimes they don't.
Yeah. I'm curious about, because when, you mentioned when you were giving an example, it was I show a little side boob, but is it more women that you deal with, or is it more men, or how's that ratio with people being uncomfortable with things? Because I can imagine a guy be like, I don't care, I'm ready, yeah. The female maybe not. Boy, you're a perv. I'm
not a perv though. I'm not. So
I have an actor I've been working with on a show for 4 years who was one of the heartthrobs of the show, and they've tried to make him a sex symbol, and he's like, I'm not doing it. So and he's got he's got coworkers that are co-stars who are friends, and they have good all of that, and it has nothing to do with that. It's his morals and values, and he is a God-fearing man, and he's like, that is not what my body is for. We can tell these stories without it. So that's how put us in positions where we have to be really creative. I don't think it's a man-woman thing. I think it's a political climate thing a lot of times. So when we're in a situation where something has hit the news, I find people getting, especially guys, getting a lot more concerned and being like, whatever they want to, even if it's two guys, like, or two, like, whatever she wants to do, whatever she's comfortable with. And I force people to tease out boundaries. I know that sounds like coercion of boundaries sounds crazy, but like, I try to, I'm like, because there are people like, I'm whatever. And I'm like, okay, would it be cool if, and I'll come up with something really ridiculous. And they'd be like, well, why would that happen? And I'm like, I don't know, but it sounds like it was a boundary for you. So let's, let's figure this out. So, so I really do try to, and I sometimes I have to put it in a larger context of like, remember, this is not going to be the only thing that you do. But your boundaries are going to exist regardless. So it's not always going to be about what this one person is comfortable with, but it's always going to be about what you're comfortable with. Right. So let's figure that out. So I try to do that, but it does end up being, I do get a lot of that. And I also, and on the flip side of that, I get a lot of women that because they are protective of their co-stars, or because they don't want to be the problem, or because they want to see, because they know that they signed up for a role that has nudity or intimacy or something, they don't want to go back and like backtrack and be seen as difficult. So then they're very much like, no, I'm fine. Like, I'm super comfortable, and they'll do uncomfortable things. Like, I'm putting them in a robe, and that is a rule. That is a SAG rule. You have to, like, you cannot just be walking around and they're walking around with a robe out, or their body out or something like that. And they're like, I'm comfortable though. And I'm like, but nobody else is. Nobody wants to see your body.
Right. Yeah,
I don't want to see you naked. Like,
right. Huh.
Yeah.
So I really feel like it's political climate. I think it is certain sometimes, like, based on the person, it might be based on gender, but people's motivations for how they feel about intimacy, I think a lot of times are really, really ebb and flow based on what is going on around them, which is unfortunate. So that's why when I'm working with new actors, I make them more, I keep saying all this stuff about making people do things about boundaries, but I strongly suggest that they write down what their boundaries are, and it's something that they keep with them.
I think what you're saying though is actually right. Like, that's what your job is, like, to make them see, because like you said, some of them don't know that they can have boundaries even in this industry, because it's only been a 6-year thing that they can even ask for a person like you to be on set. So I think you keep saying, I keep saying, but it's like, you have to, in your job, you have to reiterate to these people consistently, like, yo, I'm here to help you not not go against your moral code or whatever.
And sometimes people don't ask that question and ask themselves that question internally until some
naked.
Right. Yeah. Like, oh snap! I didn't want to do this, and now you like, it's too late. Now you here.
Yeah, now it's too late. It's too late.
Now you got a butt plug. Now you got a butt plug. Look at it.
Right. You ain't asked for that. You ain't asked for that at all. You're leaving everything. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I have a question. I have a question about the heartthrob. The heartthrob male that you talked about earlier. Is him being a heartthrob and being pretty famous, does he get to say he doesn't want to do those things and y'all can write it a different way? Like, if he's a newer actor, does he get to say those things, and do they just move to the next actor who's willing? Like, do you have to have a B-list, a C-list type of style? If you're a D-list actor or less, can you say those things and still be acting?
The fact that I'm even hesitant in responding to that is already fucked up, right?
Yeah.
Because the answer should be no. But I can't promise that the answer is no. Right. This situation, this person, I feel like at the time where they started saying, because at first they were like less, right? Or like they had a lot of boundaries around it. That was when they were brand new. Or not brand new, but like unknown. After they got a little bit more established is when they did draw that line of like, I'm just not doing it anymore. Don't write it anymore. And they're already an established character, so they're leveraging that. But, and then that's when you get into are you unwilling to tell this story? Or are you unwilling to just do it? Because at that point, it's like, if this is what the creative wants, then the creative should be able to have that. And that should be okay. But it doesn't have to be you doing it. But now it's about but if you, it gets really, I feel like it gets really wonky and coercive, because at that point, it's like, if you're not willing to tell the story, then I would hope that that person would be okay with somebody else telling the story. The only thing is, everybody in the whole world is going to think it's you. So then are you okay with that? And then a lot of times, sometimes people will take that back and be like, and then I end up in these really ethical dilemmas, because now somebody's like, well, if people are going to think it's me anyway, I don't want, because you can't be on the set and be like, no, I wouldn't do it like that. You know? So like you relinquish creative control to a certain extent. And sometimes people would rather them have more control over it, especially if it's a intimate storyline where people are now going to associate that particular and specific sexual action with you, and it's not giving what you would want it to give. Then it's not even, it's so much of this is so ego driven that it gets kind of wonky. But I mean, to answer your question, it shouldn't be like that. I try to do my very best to make sure that the person they're saying no to is me, so that I know how to advocate for them in a particular way to make sure that we can still get the work. Like, the idea is to get the work done. It just doesn't always have to be done in a really specific way. But it's also about working in a creative team that's okay with that. Because I worked on a show, and it was probably the most difficult show I've ever worked on in my life. And I would go home and I would cry because I was so exhausted from advocating.
Which one was that? I'm just joking.
I don't know. I don't know.
No network. How many?
But it was really, really hard, because I was exhausted every day from advocating for these actors who were all of them were like saying no. They're like, we're not doing this. Like, the stuff that was written on the page was crazy, and it was like they didn't get scripts before they signed. It's like, yeah, you will be involved in simulated sexual nudity or whatever, but it's very general. A lot of times when people are getting hired, then on the back end, you want to give them these crazy scripts. Their people are not into it, like their reps are not. So I'm over here, just really advocating and trying to be like, but we can get this done. Like, they're not saying they won't do it. They consented to nudity. They consented to simulated sex. But maybe it's like a choking thing. This person doesn't want to be choked. But they are fine with telling the story of a power play dynamic. These are some other ways we can tell the story of a power play dynamic. And the people will come back and be like, but that's not what I wrote. And I'm like...
Yeah, I didn't even think of that part. People saying,
people took the writers.
Yeah, because you would think that people are like, okay, especially with the climate of it, it's like, okay, well, like, let's figure something out. No, there are people who are so attached to the works that they wrote, writers and creative teams. They were like, well, then they will either write somebody out if it's something already established. They will find that's when you see people dying off, or something happens that just seems super random. And you're like, that doesn't seem like that was supposed to go there. Like something just changes. But I will say something that I wouldn't say a newer actor, but what I do a lot of is also working with casting teams to make sure that their casting directives and casting calls are super specific. And there are casting people who are uncomfortable with talking about sex and sexual narratives. So they'll keep something very general and say, this role includes nudity and simulated sex. And I'll be like, no, you need to say this role involves a woman on their knees performing simulated fellatio on a main character. Something like it needs to be.
That's very different.
Yeah, it's very different, because then, and especially like what happens a lot, it's a day player. So a lot of ways that people are able, if you've probably noticed, like in a lot of television shows, some of the more sexual actions may involve a person who you only see that one time, or they have a very, very little part. And it's so that, because you might have a lot of actors who are maybe less interested or okay with doing simulated sexual stuff, but it is a huge part of the narrative and the story, and they have to try to keep it in there because they're trying to keep viewership. They'll hire all these people for a day to come in, do some sex stuff or whatever, and then you never really see that person again. And those people, that is a hire fire thing. If you know you are coming in that day to do that very specific thing, then please don't get there and come to set and be like, I'm not comfortable with that. That's probably the only time I feel okay with people being like, okay, we have to recast this.
Right. So if it's that girl it's just that girl that the guy picks up in the nightclub and takes her home for a one night stay type vibe.
She signed off on a lot of main actors in the story didn't.
Right.
Because if they signed off, they would have met her in the club. They would have met the main actress in the club.
Right.
And talked about the business and have been right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And most of those actors don't get but bit parts throughout their careers unless they just hit it big with something and stick.
The ones that just the day people?
Yeah, the day.
Think about Poetic Justice. All right, I just watched that movie last night, right? Regina King was getting it.
That's
right.
true.
I don't know if y'all remember, but so
Tori was putting it down. Trying. He was trying.
So
I don't remember the movie. You just said it was a sex scene. I'm assuming that Jay took. Nah, he brushed. That was the nigga that brushed his hair on.
But this was in the back of the This was back of the truck, right? This was in the back of the truck.
Back of the mail truck. Yeah, he ain't do his job. He fell asleep.
It's something weird that happened, but
Really,
I'm just saying that to say that's a big name.
It wasn't 16 minutes. It wasn't 16 minutes.
It wasn't. Thank God. But like I will say, there are waves of people. There are waves of people, and there are people who. Who's that girl from To Kill a Mockingbird? Shayla something. I don't know. She's an actress that I feel like has always been sexualized, but she's always been sexualized in very large roles. So she is now, I mean, I don't think she's an amazing actress, and I don't think she's typecast, but I think that, like, I feel like I've seen her boobs in everything that she's ever been in. But the roles that she has are not sexual characters. Does that make sense?
That's like Sydney Sweeney. I think, and now I think she's in everything. And you always got, it's like in the contract, we got to see your breast or something.
Yeah. So you got these actresses who and actors who, but then you've got, I mean, all of these. So I was naming white. That's actually interesting. I was naming white women who have had success in kind of falling in that lane and staying in that lane, and then you've got a lot of Black men who are in that lane. And so I don't know, it's all in how we I feel like it's a societal climate again of like how we're sexualizing people at the time.
Yeah, that's true. Damn.
Well, because
you know what?
I was just looking at something because they were talking about, I was watching another podcast, and they were talking about, Pam Grier back in the Black exploitation days, you were guaranteed to see her breast. So, so maybe it's.
But Rosie, what is it? Do the right? Was it Do the Right Thing?
Yeah.
No. Yeah, with Rosie Perez.
Yeah, with the ice.
Yep.
So that's a body double example. I have not been able to confirm this, but I'm almost 100% sure that is not her body. And I feel like anytime I see a scene and you never see the person's body and face in the same shot, that's not them.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's not Rosie Perez. That is not her.
But I don't know, because a white man can't jump. You can see both. You can see her head and her face.
That's not Do the Right Thing.
Yeah, but it's similar.
No, but it's two different movies.
Yeah, two different movies. But
she may say.
But you think you could overlay the bodies and you think they're the same person?
I don't know.
I don't remember her having any nudity.
She was naked in both. She was naked in both of them, but maybe it was Woody Harrelson touching her and not Spike Lee. Could have been a different.
This guy.
You never know.
Yikes.
Yeah. Oh, she also was. I think Do the Right Thing was newer. Like she was more. Yeah. She was a younger actress, and maybe she was like, eh. And as she got in the business, she was like, you know what? Hey, whatever.
And she was naked or not, she was awesome in White Man Can't Jump. Yeah, I really enjoyed her. skating away, playing Jeopardy for 3 days straight. She was awesome.
White Man Can't Jump was a good movie.
I think it also has to do, like, it has to do with casting too. Some of these people who are being put in these roles are just not as strong of actors or actresses. And that, I think, plays into it as well. Like, that is like, I feel like they always say that, artist has a paintbrush. Everybody's got their tools. I feel like they end up being, that's the tool that they are to the craft. And being that person that steps in to do those things, but if given the opportunity to play a bigger or different role, sometimes that's not them.
Right.
Right. I know you didn't mean to, Zuri, but pun intended. Tool was good.
Yikes.
Yo, because you know what's crazy though? What I think about is Chloe Bailey. Is that her name? Like her scene on that. What was it? Swarm, John?
Swarm. Yeah.
That didn't help her at all. Like, I thought it was going to give her a little boost, but it didn't. And it's crazy that it didn't at all. She showed her damn near her whole body on that joint. That's a real
it was so crazy to me how, well, not crazy. I feel like I'm just like saying buzzwords, but I was really surprised at how people responded so negatively to that so fast. Instead of being, because that's what I'm saying. It's all about the political. You have to do stuff at the right time, because a year ago, maybe like a year before that, people would have been like empowerment. Like,
but I think
she took a moment, like,
And I think it's also because it was also how they were comparing it, because you had her sister about to play a Disney princess. I think that's why, and they were trying to play the same people, and they're not the same people. So I mean,
not at all.
They're also not twins,
right?
So,
exactly.
So if she didn't have a famous sister, you think she would have got away with it more?
Yeah, I think they wouldn't.
Than having a famous sister that's kind of wholesome, and she's like the not so wholesome sister. That's weird.
I think. Yeah, I don't like how they put him away, but I understand your question. But I think even she's the equivalent of a child star that was never a child star.
Right.
So even if her sister was never in the picture, from her coming from Grownish, which is a young adult television show, and the way that they talk about sex and sexuality is so CW.
Right.
And downplayed, to go from that, because that's how we know her. And then we know her as, music and stuff. And also music geared towards a younger audience, at least at that point. And then you go and do this. So I think that, and you see that a lot of times with child actors. It's like, they do this, that, and then they go and do this. And it's like, people are so offended and pushing their pro. But like, I mean, that scene wasn't even that much. But
yeah,
it's always in comparison to something. If you have something to compare to, then that's where the impact comes from and the response.
Right. Yeah. And a lot of times, it is projecting. Like, people are like, "Oh, I thought this was you shouldn't be doing this." Like, how you gonna tell me what I'm supposed to be doing?
Right.
That's crazy. That's nuts to me.
That's a grown woman.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Sounding like grown with a dip.
Now we probably could talk. We probably could talk to you all day, because your biography is
I got so
substantial.
Right.
Because we didn't get one more question.
Yeah, because we didn't get to. There was a whole lot of other things.
Sexologist and
she was
Sorry, if I'm a young person or old person of my age and I want to get into intimacy consulting or intimacy coordination, what kind of background do I need? Because earlier you said you told the girl that she wasn't intimacy coordinator.
Because she wasn't trained, yeah.
Right, yeah. So what is the training that I need? What would you say to somebody who's my age or somebody who's in high school that sees this as a goal or a career path? What kind of education do they need to have master's degrees? Do they need to be that do they need to be therapists? Like what's
that's what I was gonna say.
What's the training that you need, that you would say if you were mentoring someone?
Yeah, and I get asked this a lot, and I feel like because I'm in this place where I'm feeling so protective of this, because there are so many people just showing up and doing it right now. I'm like, so I do get asked for mentorship probably like once a week, and I have to be like, until we get a handle on this, and we weed out the people who are pretending to do this work and causing, I don't know how many, it's just heartbreaking the number of sets I've shown up on because they hired an intimacy coordinator. and they weren't, and that person like screwed, like very, very much screwed things up. Like I worked with, I was on piano lesson, and Denzel Washington has worked with a first AD for the majority of his career. I cannot remember this guy's name, but he was phenomenal. Sweet guy, amazing guy. But when I got to that set, I feel very comfortable saying, like, I think he would laugh about it if it got played for him. When I felt all the resistance in the world, you know, and I wasn't exactly sure where it was from. I mean, he's an older guy. I understand that this is a newer profession. I get a lot of pushback almost on every step. I'm having to advocate for myself. I'm having to educate people who are in the industry on who I am, what I do, what I'm not doing. Because like a lot of times people are like, well, why are you not over here? Why are you not? I'm like, relax, because that's not my job. Like, that's not my job, you know. But this is my, and then or like, why are you over here? It's because I'm doing my job. You know, it's a lot of that. Where I just have to, you know, approach it with a lot of humility and like patience and things. But with him, I just felt this, like, I'm like, I want him on my side, you know, and I wanted to push a little bit, and I'm curious. And I felt like I found the perfect moment because I felt him softening a little bit. Like we were doing I don't know if you've seen the movie, but Daniel Detweiler is like one of my favorite people to ever work with. I've worked with her a few times. And it was a very mild scene. Piano lesson doesn't actually have any, is a really good example of like how intimate storytelling can exist without nudity or simulated sex, because there's no sex in it. But it was a very mild, it was the bathroom scene. Everybody's wonderful. And then all of a sudden we get to the end of it, and he looks at me and he was like, thank you for being here. And I felt it was genuine, right? And I was like, you're welcome, you know, thank you for having me. And I looked at him and I was like, what was the switch? And I just straight up kind of asked him. And he was like, I've only worked with one intimacy coordinator ever. And he was like, I was so, like, by the end of it, I was so done with it. He was like, I didn't understand why you guys existed. I felt like she was just in the way. She was acting like she was a director.
It probably was a girl you say, no, you're not. It's probably her. It probably was her.
I don't know who it was, but I think it was probably one of these people they're veteran people who are walking around and doing that, because the way that they're advocating for the position is being like, I'm here, you know, as opposed to being like, no, the industry's been here for over 100 years and we're new. Right. So act like the new kid, but figure out a way, you know, like there's a way to be, you know, you don't have to be subservient, but you don't get to come in there like you're running the show and feel like you're going to be successful. But anyway, he had a really, really awful experience and gave me some detail about that experience. And that is the story for a lot of people. So I want more people who are trained to do this work, who have, it's not like you can have a bunch of different doctors and not everybody has bedside manner, but everybody's a doctor, right? Like you don't went to school, you know how to prescribe, you know how to do the work. This is not that job. Not everybody can do this work. And I can meet somebody right off the bat and tell if they would be, and some people are not good for, I'm not good for every production, you know, because sometimes you do need that more authoritative person, and I'm always going to be pretty chill. So, but if you have somebody like running amok, I might send, like Samantha McDonald's my mentor. I might send her and be like, can you get these people together? Because I can't, you know. So there are different people for it, but they run a very short spectrum of personalities, you know. So so if somebody was trying to get into this work, I'd say pause, because we're trying to get it together. But when we do really get it together, there are training programs. I have a hard time advocating for the training programs, even though I'm certified by them, because I never did them, because I've been doing this long enough to be a part of the people making the training programs. Right. So I'm certified by the organization that I helped, or like that helped me the most to get to where I am, and who I tried along the way to try to contribute like therapeutic perspectives to. But all in all, they did that work on their own. But it was after I started doing this. So there's that training program. It's called IDC. And there were some really great people doing that. So Alicia Rodas, the person who made this up and started doing this work, who I contacted all those years ago, she runs that organization. And then there's some other, then that's more worldwide, East Coast. She's in New York. And then IPA is an organization that also acts as an agency. So I think that they're pretty cool outside of LA. But in terms of like having a background, I think it's a person. It's a person thing. You have to be able to be personable. You have to be able to be kind, but you also have to be super confident. You have to, because like I told you, I walk on every set and people are like, who the fuck are you out here? So it's there's a balance, but I mean, I'm writing a book.
Of course you are.
So I'm ready. So I'm ready. Yeah, I'm ready. And it's
perfect.
When
it's finished, you come back on.
Yeah, the art and ethics of industry coordinating, but it's about 600 pages. It reads kind of like a textbook, and a lot of it is the how-to when you're on set. Mm-hmm. But I'd say 10 chapters of it is about the work that you need to do to either to figure out if you're the person to do this work, and then develop that person into somebody who can shape themselves into this industry to make it make sense for them, and then how to do it.
Gotcha. All right. Yeah, I mean, that's a lot. I mean, I didn't know how intricate it was to be intimacy coordinator, and the fact that it didn't exist beforehand, because it seemed like it should have been. It should have. I can think of many times where you see naked people running through a field or something like that. You're like, well, that seems like a lot of work. You would think there was somebody advocating for that work, but who knows?
To be honest, I never even thought about the avocation for the 50 people running in the field butt naked. I thought intimacy coordinator was just the sex scenes, was just like coordinating and choreographing how the man and the woman or the 2 people or 3 people, however many it was, did the sex scenes without making it look fake. And it doesn't seem like that seems like 1% of what you do. Like everything else is more, do you consent to do this? What's your moral code? And let's make that combined with production so we can make an actual movie or a sitcom or something.
I mean, and what you said, that 1% is a lot bigger, but I just don't think about it as much. Because I mean, and then because then we get into funny stuff of like people really think I can't imagine what people do at their house and they're just like, yes, they look great, and nothing really looks great on TV on film like it does. That would be realistic. So it is all about making things. It's doing really bizarre, unsexy things to make things look like they're real.
Right.
Isn't it weird that people don't talk more about this? Like actors and actresses don't talk about more about the intimacy parts and like how fake it is and how awkward it is to make it real.
I think they do.
As much about this as you have, and I've seen plenty of sex scenes in movies.
But I think
I wish that people talked more about the intimacy coordinators they work with, because I mean it's because like right now we're not even in templates. Like for credits, you have to be manually added, because all of those things, it's like a template, right? Like it's like everybody gets put into a thing and it generates, So even if I could be being somebody who's being generated, but there's no slot for it. So like I went to go see the premiere of Piano Lesson, and I wasn't in the credits there, but I'm in them on Netflix, but they had to add me. So it's like, and anytime I do HBO, that is now a part of their template. I think Netflix, that's a part of their template. Anybody else, if somebody isn't advocating for that and adding it in there, you're not going to be in there. So I do wish that part of this, it's going to be a group effort for us to stay valid and like continue to take up space and make sure that this sticks. And actors are going to be a huge part of that. Directors are going to be a huge part of it. I will say, in writing this book, I am surprised at how many people have spoken up about it. And have talked about it. I thought that was really cool. And even good, bad, ugly, because there are people who are like, I don't like Jennifer Anderson, I think is one of them, like, this is stupid. like she's like, I don't understand why this is here. But but there are people talking about it. I do wish it was more. And the other thing is, these themes are really challenging and they're emotional. And like, I don't go to rap parties most of the time, because I get the most vulnerable parts of strangers, and we do what we can to prepare best we can, get through it without any harm, anything like that. And then on the back end, bookend it, do aftercare, close that chapter, so those people can continue to do their work and move on. so it's not the first thing a lot of times that they want to talk about. So unless an interviewer is bringing it up, it's very unlikely that they're going to lean into talking about it, because it is really weird and really vulnerable and a lot of times really difficult for people.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense. Is there? I do got another question. You know of any men that's in this?
Yeah, I did like when I first started. We did my training was weird, right? Because there was nothing concrete, but there was a thing for intensive. So we did like these 9-day intensives, and I did one in Rhode Island with a group of people. One of them, and we had 2 guys in that I think just 2 guys. No, we had more than 2, but 2 of them were going into film. The others, I think, were in theater, which is very different. And somebody in theater is called an intimacy director. And you can imagine if you are trying to make something look real from the front row and all the way in it's very different.
Yeah.
And you rehearse. And you go into a set, you might not ever, and it's live. You get it's just very, very different skill sets, very different things. That makes sense. I don't do theater, but but Emil is a guy named Emil, and he's in South Africa, and he actually started an organization in South Africa that trains people, and he's great. And he's comes from theater, dance, or whatever. And I think that he's done okay, because I've seen him pop up on things. But there was another guy, and I won't say his name, but he was phenomenal, just like amazing, kind-hearted guy, and he was a person of color. And like just. Like I said, there's a certain type of person. He's that certain type of person. Yeah. And I followed up with him. He actually asked me to come on a podcast that he was doing. And I was like, oh yeah, we could talk about our, like we can, and this was probably like 2 years ago. And he was like, oh, I'm not doing it. And I was like, what? And apparently he had such a hard time. People were making any kind of accusation or just like refused to hire him because he wasn't a woman. Having issues with actors being like, oh, you're the intimacy coordinator. I don't want to work. He apparently ran into a lot. He's in the New York area, which is so unfortunate to hear.
I wouldn't be
surprised. And I've had guys come up to me and ask me.
I'm not surprised because people are.
You're not surprised because he's a man.
I'm not either. I'm not, it sucks, but I'm not either. And I also had to check my own bias, because I've had guys come up to me, especially I was on BMF, working BMF, and this crew member, and I just felt like he was hitting on me. And he would always ask me about intimacy coordinating. And then eventually he was like, no, I'm serious. I really want to do this. And I remember looking, I had to check my own bias. So I was like, no, you don't. The fact that it never even occurred to me that, it's just, I don't think we're there yet. I think that we should be. I think that if you ask anybody who is a governing board of any of these organizations training people, they're like, that's not true. We're so inclusive. And I think it's BS. I don't think that industry is ready for that, because the birth of this industry, the birth of this profession in this industry is because of the harm of men
against women and lesser.
I got you.
Right. So we're all. It's almost like you don't see a lot of male kindergarten teachers.
Right. Well, because people think intimate and nurturing, so they kind of throw it all together.
Intimate. I can nurture your kid. I could be intimate with your.
Yeah.
Whatever you need me to be.
It's societal biases. Blame it on society.
Yeah. It is that. Hey.
Wow.
All right, I know we could go on and on, but I did say I know we had some.
I know.
We got that one, so we get
please come back when you get done your PhD or your book, or
when my internet works.
I mean,
hey, you just come back on a Tuesday if you want. It's just
right. Yeah. Hey.
Everybody jamming things on a Sunday. Come back when it's looser.
All right. Well, once again, we want to thank Zuri Pryor-Graves for coming on the podcast.
That's so crazy because she did a lot of talking. I feel like we didn't get enough.
Nah, right.
Because there's a lot in her bio. Her bio is extensive, and there's a lot of things to touch on that we didn't get to. But yeah, I mean,
we spent 25 minutes on rollerblading.
Yeah. Well, that was unexpected. But that was essential. That was essential to how she got to
Absolutely.
intimacy coordinator.
Yeah.
So it may, hey.
And I feel like we could have did a whole thing on just your roller derby career.
Right, but we ain't getting
Yeah, hurry up and
we ain't get to the
you hurry
acting
up and end
or
it
the-
so we can hear who she what set she was talking about.
Well, before we go, we always like to know how people can find everybody on these worldwide webs, these social medias, these websites, or how can they get in contact you? We always start with a guest. So, Zuri, how can people find out more about what you do, what you're doing, what you're involved in, when the book comes out, all that good stuff?
Thank you for asking. Yeah, my socials are Intimacy with Z. I'm really only active on Instagram. And my website, where I'm not taking any sex therapy clients, but there is information if you are interested in sex therapy on recommendations, or different things like that for sex therapy, sex education. And also on my website is Set Therapy, which I also do mental health coordinating and intimacy coordinating. So my website is my name, Zuri Pryor-Graves without a hyphen.com.
All right.
We didn't even get to the. We just did
Right,
the.
that's
on
what I'm
set.
saying. It's a lot.
Get to the intimacy between one-on-one couples. Hey, I didn't even know you did that. God damn.
I said it's a lot, man. It's a lot we missed.
Yeah. Yeah. All
Sure,
right.
you got a lot of roots.
Yeah.
Got a lot of roots.
All right, yo. How can I find you?
You can find me on Instagram at IM302YODA. I swear I'm gonna post one day. I haven't posted all year, really.
Lou?
Man, I'm on Instagram and my name is Lou Belgium.
And you can find Brewsing Banter Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Brewsing Banter Podcast. You can even go to www.brewsingbanter.com. If you want to listen to podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, anywhere you listen to podcasts. I said Google already. Not Google. Google's gone. But anyway you listen to podcasts, you can even see Alexa play Brewsing Banter Podcast because we are on Amazon Music. And if you want to follow me, Rob Stay Bruising, there it is. Bing, bing, bing. If you want to get merch like this, check it out, the Brewsing Banter Podcast as well. Remember to rate and review, all that good stuff. This has been episode 284 of Brewsing Banter Podcast. Until next time.
Go Birds!
Cheers.
Go Brewsing Banter.